Honnold climbed 3,000 feet up El Capitan without a rope, scaled Taipei 101 on live television, and lived in a van for a decade earning $300 a month. Yet when scientists scanned his brain, they concluded he was neurologically different, wired without fear. He hates that conclusion. After 20 years of climbing 5 days a week, being terrified repeatedly, his brain simply learned to respond differently. The real story isn't about fearlessness. It's about what happens when you refuse to let perfect be the enemy of good, when you optimize for doing things you love instead of chasing money, and when you accept that you're going to die anyway, so you might as well take the risks you actually choose. Section 1. Why a fractured childhood built an unconventional life. Honnold grew up in a middle-class suburban home where nobody was athletic. His parents stayed together for the kids despite a fraught relationship. His mother was driven, high-performing, speaking 7 or 8 languages and playing every instrument. She demanded perfection with the phrase presque ni comme tes pas, almost doesn't count. His father appeared deeply depressed throughout Alex's childhood, trapped in a marriage he didn't want. After the divorce, his father became happier but died unexpectedly at 55, falling over in an airport from a heart attack. The household was emotionally cold. Affection felt conditional, tied to performance and achievement. Alex characterized it as safe and relatively happy until he saw other families and realized what he was missing. That lack of warmth left fingerprints. He grew up less expressive, less emotionally intelligent, struggling with verbal affection even now with his wife and daughters. But his father's sudden death at 55 became a catalyst. It reminded Alex of his own mortality in a way that shaped everything that followed. Instead of making him risk-averse, it made him intentional about the risks he would take. Section 2. Why living in a van for 10 years wasn't sacrifice. At 19, after his father died, Alex stole his mother's minivan and started living in it. His father had left retirement money to Alex and his sister. She used it for college. Alex put it in bonds and lived off roughly $300 a month. He bought a Ford Econoline van for $10,000 and lived in it for the next decade from age 20 to 30. He couldn't even stand up inside. He did 3 different build-outs over the years, each slightly nicer than the last, adding a small stove and better storage. People assume this period was difficult, a time of endurance and struggle. Alex sees it completely differently. He loved it. He would do it again. He was climbing everything he could see, learning, growing, having fun with friends. The graph of his career shows almost nothing happening financially during those years, a flat line of minimal income and attention. But he wasn't optimizing for money or fame. He was optimizing for the next thing that would push him a little bit, the next climb that would challenge him. His first sponsorship from the North Face paid $10,000 a year, which felt like abundance when you live alone in a van. His mother, surprisingly, was supportive. He was young enough that it looked like a gap year, a period of finding himself. And there was enough external validation, enough recognition from the climbing community, that his family could see he was good at this random thing even if they didn't understand it. There were periods of emotional turmoil, wanting a girlfriend, wanting to be better than he was, not knowing what he was doing with his life, but retrospectively, it was amazing. Section 3. Why the brain scan myth misses the entire point. After the documentary Free Solo, a narrative took hold that Honnold doesn't experience fear because his amygdala, the fear center of the brain, lights up less when shown scary images. He hates this conclusion. It puts him in a box labeled different, as if he's neurologically special, born without the capacity for normal human fear. The reality is far more instructive. The brain scan showed him black and white photos inside an fMRI machine, a sealed metal tube where he was completely safe. After 20 years of climbing 5 days a week, being genuinely scared in real situations with real consequences, black and white photos don't trigger much response. A control subject's brain responds to images differently because they haven't spent 2 decades conditioning their fear response. The real takeaway, Alex insists, is that he has an amygdala and it works. There are no structural differences. He's a middle-class suburban kid with no athletic family background who simply put in the time. Neuroplasticity means brains change based on what you do. A monk's brain scan looks totally different from an average person's after years of meditation. Alex's brain looks different after years of managing fear in high-consequence environments. This isn't discouraging, it's inspiring. It means anyone can change their brain through deliberate practice. He went through the same transformation with public speaking. He was terrified of it for years. After the Free Solo film tour and countless public appearances, he's basically fine now. Exposure therapy works. There's no hack. You get really scared over and over for long enough, and eventually it's not that scary anymore. Section 4. Why the scariest moments came with a rope. People assume Alex's scariest moments happen while free soloing, climbing without a rope where a fall means death. The opposite is true. His most terrifying experiences came while climbing with a rope on expeditions where he pushed into the unknown because he thought the rope would save him. In Antarctica in 2017, he and his team climbed day on, day off, tackling crazy spires in brutal cold. The rock was crumbling, conditions were challenging, and they kept hoping it would get better. It kept getting worse. Having a rope means nothing unless you get good protection, unless you can place gear into the rock that will hold a fall. If you climb 200 feet without finding good placements, you're looking at a 400-foot fall before the rope catches you. That's almost certainly fatal. You'll hit the wall after falling that far. The rope will catch your corpse. On that Antarctica expedition, Alex spent entire days spooning Nutella in the cook tent, shell-shocked and traumatized from the previous day's climb, then going out and doing it again. They climbed everything in the range. It was incredible and terrifying. When free soloing, he keeps it within a healthy margin. He practices ahead of time. He knows he can do it because the consequence of being wrong is death. With a rope, he's willing to push further into uncertainty, and that's where the real fear lives. Climbing is fundamentally scary. Even with a rope, you're always visualizing consequences, always asking if the gear will hold, if y'all hit a ledge, if y'all clear it into free space. After years of always being a little bit scared, you get good at managing it. Section 5. Why breaking down Taipei 101 reveals the path to mastery. When Alex climbed Taipei 101 on live television in January, millions watched him scale the 1667-foot skyscraper. It looked like magic, like he just walked up and did it. He'd been preparing since September, scouting every segment with ropes, taking notes on his phone, learning the building the way you study anything. The bottom section is a low-angle slab punctuated by decorative clouds. The 8 bamboo segments are overhanging and relentlessly physical. The dragons on the corners each feel different. The balconies near the top are overhanging. Every transition between sections is its own challenge. People asked if it was harder than El Capitan. Obviously not. He did it on live television, which means it had to be within his capabilities with a margin for error. El Capitan was a 10-year life project done in absolute secrecy, on his terms, on the correct day after years of effort and failed attempts. Taipei 101 was in his sweet spot, hard enough to be interesting and engaging, challenging enough to train for, but not the absolute limit of what he could do. If he was trying for maximum difficulty, he would have climbed the northwest area in full shade for better conditions, not the southeast in morning light for beautiful filming. The hardest part was the stamina, doing the same physical moves over and over for hundreds of feet. One corner would have required an extreme jump, but there was a security camera bolted to the wall with giant bolts. He used it as a handle. That's climbing, breaking down the impossible into pieces, working on each piece, trusting that preparation compounds. He expected it to take an hour and a half to 2 hours. He knew from experience, from 24-hour climbs and a 54-hour push in Patagonia without food, that he had a much deeper reserve than 2 hours of hard exercise. Section 6. Why intentional risk-taking changes everything. Alex's father dying at 55 reminded him of his own mortality in a way that shaped his entire philosophy of risk. People don't do risky things because they have a mistaken idea they can live forever. They avoid thinking about death, so they avoid risk, believing they can preserve their life indefinitely. But you're going to die either way. Life expectancy for men is 78. Even if you make it that far, y'all wish you had 22 more years. Y'all still feel it's too little. He'd rather die at 55 having done things he's proud of than die at 78 wishing he'd done more. The key is taking smart, calculated risks that you choose, not risks you stumble into unconsciously. People go out partying, get buzzed, drive home. They're taking risks they didn't choose. Sedentary people staying home playing video games are at higher risk of heart disease. They're taking risks without realizing it. Everyone looks at Alex's life and calls him a risk taker. He's taking risks he's choosing, very intentionally mitigating them as much as possible. This drives him crazy. Nobody else thinks about risk this way. They think they're safe because they're not climbing buildings, but they're not thinking through the risks they are taking. Even taking no risk, you're going to die. So choose the things you care about and do them well. Have a plan. Execute. Don't just roll the dice with your life. Don't put all your money on black and hope. Make choices. Free soloing is an on-off switch, very intentional with no margin for error. Drinking is a volume knob where risk increases the more you do it, often without conscious choice. Section 7. Why paying attention is the deepest form of love. Alex's wife Sandy wrote him a letter describing what she sees in him. She knows he's less affected by emotions like anxiety, fear, shame, guilt, self-doubt than most people. But beneath the surface is an ocean of something else, the ability to truly see things. He moves through the world like a hawk while the rest of us are lost in thought. As a climber, he sees the way up a rock face, the climbability of a building, the layered history of a mountain range. As a father, he notices the quiet, intrinsic desires of his daughters, the chores that need doing. As a friend, he sees the raw potential in every person. Nothing goes unnoticed, neither strengths nor weaknesses, moments of dedication or laziness. He's practical and blunt in his assessment, but paying attention is love. His ability to see the world clearly allows him to appreciate it more clearly. Sandy sees him rushing down the trail to get home for dinner, flying red-eyes to be home a day sooner, cramming in gym sessions so she has time for her workout, staying awake to chat at night despite pushing his body to the limit during the day. She sees the insane juggling act he does every day to be a great athlete, dad, and husband. They argue about it. She needs the words, the verbal expression of love. He shows it through actions. He always says actions speak louder than words. If you're doing all the things, you don't need to talk about them. But he's making slow progress on saying the words, and that's good because they'll be married for another 50 or 60 years. He needs a project for the rest of his life. He started at such a low point emotionally that incremental progress over decades feels right. There's nothing better in life than making progress. Key takeaways. Alex Honnold's brain isn't different because he was born fearless. It's different because he spent 20 years climbing 5 days a week, being scared and learning to manage that fear through exposure. Neuroplasticity means we can all change our brains through deliberate practice. The key is finding something you love enough that hard work doesn't feel like hard work, then breaking impossible challenges into smaller pieces and working on each piece. Don't optimize for money or fame early in your career. Optimize for doing things you love and creating value, and the economics follow later. Accept that you're going to die, so take the risks you actually choose instead of stumbling into risks unconsciously. Focus on doing lots of good things consistently, and occasionally some of them will be great. You can't connect the dots looking forward, only backward, so trust that the dots will connect and keep moving. Paying attention to people, truly seeing them, is one of the deepest forms of love, even when words are hard.